Today on Denver Hot Rods, we head south to Pueblo for the NSRA Street Rod Nationals. Then we go cruising on Broadway at the Englewood Cruise. Then we're off to Broomfield for the Rocky Mountain Car Show. And on Hot Rod Builds, we show you how to rejet a Stromberg 97 carburetor. Then we head up to Golden for a 32 Ford car show with the Deuces of Colorado. Every June, the Colorado State Fairgrounds in Pueblo host over 2,000 cars at the NSRA Rocky Mountain Street Rod Nationals. We took in the sights and sounds. We spoke with Jim Landesbarger about his 1930 Model A coupe.
It's got a 5-speed S10 transmission in it. It's got a banjo rear end with a fake quick change on it. And it's running dual exhaust and lake pipes and hairpin front suspension. And other than that, it's pretty explainable. It's running 32 Deuce rails. And it's got a 32 grill shell cut down on the front, and the rest of the car is all 1930. The interior had glide seats. As you can see, it's white rolled and pleated, and it's a vinyl material, and it was done by Lobex, and it's pretty much been the same since I got the car.
Then we caught up with Manuel Padilla and his 1934 5-window coupe.
Manuel Padilla, Monument, Colorado. It's a 1934 Ford. When I bought it, it was pretty rough, and I put it together. It's got a 350 engine, 350 tranny, and an 8-inch Ford rear end. I used all the original gauges. I didn't want nothing's been cut up on the body or anything to change anything. I did some work on the frame just to put what I put in it. That's about it, really.
Everyone in Denver knows Broadway. Naturally, a cruise night was started on this famous street. We caught up with John Bestie and his 1932 Ford Vicky.
I'm John Best, and this is my 32 Ford Victoria, all steel. And it's a small block Ford with the 671 supercharger, dual 4s, fully chrome-plated undercarriage, Jaguar chrome-plated rear end, leather interior. The interior was done by Auto Weave. It's a little filthy in there right now, but we've been driving it all day. And it's got air conditioning, 4-wheel disc brakes, and everything that you'd want in a modern hot rod. We have Halabrand wheels with spinners, yeah. All steel car, all Henry Ford.
We also talked to hot rod legend Neil East and his special roadster.
67 Ford replica. Not quite. Built by Darryl Zip. It's the remainder of the car that I wrecked, and it has the same chassis and engine of the first car. The front axle is a 41 Willys. I chose it because it has the 2 springs, and wanted something different. The rear end's a full independent. The suspension is custom by Zipper. Used Corvette hubs and inboard disc brakes. The body is all fiberglass, as the nose is also, except for the side panels. Those are aluminum. These parts are aluminum.
Then we cruised with Jason Burianik and his 1932 Ford 5-window coupe.
And I knew the car from when I was younger. Seen it at Neil's bookstore on Broadway. And I had long years of looking at the car from a distance. And when the car came up for sale, I knew what it was and found it in Connecticut. Like I said, it was posted on the ham. Contacted the owner, talked to him. He was definitely looking for a curator, somebody that would take care of the car, somebody that was looking to flip the car or change it from what it was in the history. Went out in the middle of COVID with a friend of mine, Steve. We flew out there to go view the car. Looked it all over, knew that it was exactly the car that it was. The gentleman had preserved the history for years. Since Neil East had owned it. The gentleman in Connecticut, his name is Mark Barcuzzi, and he did an amazing job of restoring and keeping and preserving the history during the time that he owned it. Rebuilding the motor, the transmission, going through the brake lines, not wanting to be somebody to completely change the car and really value the history of what the car was. And paying homage to Don Coleman and Neil East both who own the car. Obviously Don Coleman who built the car, Neil East who owned it after.
Okay. My dad got the body shell in 1985 from a guy named Miles Flick. We had to go up to Scottsbluff, Nebraska and literally dig it out of the dirt because it was about 4 inches into the dirt. So it had no firewall, no doors, no deck lid, nothing. It was just a body shell that was destined to be a jalopy race car. Well, the first thing my dad did was find a 32 Ford frame. And we found the back half of a frame that the body bolted to that was cut off at the firewall. So my dad used that as a jig to stabilize the body, and the first thing my dad did with that car, so he wouldn't change his mind, he took 3 inches out of the top. My dad got the car going, running, in the summer of '92. It's got a 48 Ford 59 AB flathead motor in it, 39 Ford transmission, top shift, and 34 Ford rear end with 354 gears. So now it's got 58 45 fin Buick brake drums on all 4 corners with the great big 12-inch F2 brakes. It's back in Englewood. It's good to see it. Like my dad used to tell me, the fun is in building the car and searching for the parts, because it can be whatever year you think you want it to be if you're in the garage, but as soon as you roll up the garage door, it's today.
Rocky Mountain Car Show is held every August at the Rocky Mountain Metro Airport, making this show a unique mix of vintage cars and vintage planes. We talked to David Scott about his 1929 Model A Roadster.
Hi, I'm David. This is a 1929 hopped-up Model A. Nothing is newer than 1934, and it's all a pre-war car that if you were a high school kid, you'd buy at the aftermarket parts, and this is what it would look like. They would make the front lower, they'd have small tires in the front, tall in the back, they'd rake the windshield, and they'd take the fenders off and they'd race them. And that's the kind of what I went for in this build. It's a stock Model A engine with aftermarket hot rod parts. An aluminum head, it has a downdraft carburetor, and then it also has a exhaust that is made from the torque tube. What they would do back in the day was we cut the torque tube in half and then we weld on half of the torque tube for the exhaust. And so there's lots of things on here that are period correct.
If you're running a multi-carb setup on a flathead, chances are you'll need to change out the jets and a power valve in your Stromberg 97 carbs. Each carb has to have matching sizes in each carburetor. Since Denver is high altitude, we have to lean out the carbs because of the thin air. According to Stromberg, they suggest 69 power valves and the size 41 jets for a dual carb setup on a 239 cubic inch flathead. You'll need a special jet wrench and big regular screwdriver with a slot for this, and a regular screwdriver and a pair of pliers. It's easier to use the jet wrench attached to a T-handle. Once you have the carb apart, unscrew the brass caps on the bottom of the carb center. Use the jet wrench to ease them out carefully. If they stick, screw them back in and slowly turn them out until they come out easily. Then, tighten in the new jets carefully. Tighten the brass caps with gasket back on with a big flat screwdriver until it is as tight as you can get it. Be careful not to damage the brass caps. These caps have some damage on the groove but are still usable. It's always a good idea to buy new ones if the caps are beyond repair. Now onto the power valve, which is inside the carb and screws in under the accelerator pump. Use your regular screwdriver with slot for this to avoid damaging the power valve. Once it's out, put in the new power valve and gasket until it's tight. Now, once you have the carburetor back together, put it on and check for leaks and see how it runs. You'll have to sync up the two carbs to get optimum performance. The Deuces of Colorado held a special gathering recently in Golden of 1932 Fords. organizers Tracy Rufinoct about his amazing 32 Ford Roadster.
So it's the 1932 Ford Roadster. It's a Dearborn Deuce body. My dad and I built it in 2001. It's got a 48 Ford flathead with 4 Strombergs, 4-inch crank, T5. Paint was by Level 1 Restorations, and the interior was by Sofine here in Denver. All the work was done here in Denver. Most of it was done by my dad. So these are SoCal knockoff wheels. And they are true knockoff, but they're by SoCal. It looks very similar to a Halibran. This actually has a 4-inch drop front axle that's aluminum. It's got SoCal disc brakes that are hidden inside the calipers. It's a SoCal chassis, so that's pretty much about it.
Then we talked to legend Ted Bowen about his 32 Ford Roadster.
I've had the car for going on 60 years this year. I bought it over in Yuma, Colorado for $250, but it was only the body that was good, and got parts from everywhere else. The grill shell was new old stock, and so was the grill. And it took me about 5 years to build it. It's got a Homer Collins magnet. It's pretty dirty. It needs to be scrubbed up. That's an original slingshot and Lion spearheads. It needs work. Anyway, Ed Collins did this, and he did the top. He did the interior. He did the interior probably 45 years ago. Maybe 50 now.
Well, I think I got it right. Yeah.
That's our show for today. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. We leave you now with more from the NSRA show in Pueblo.